You've seen the T-Rex. You know the scene. The cup of water rippling on the dashboard, the footsteps, the moment the animal steps out of the trees and into the rain, and everything about it says, this is the most dangerous thing that has ever lived. That image is 30 years old, and it is still the version of the T-Rex that lives in most people's heads. The upright posture, the greenish-gray scales, the tiny arms hanging uselessly at its sides, the roar that seems to shake the air itself. Here's the problem. Almost none of it is accurate. Not the posture, not the skin, not the sound, not even the way it hunted. And the strangest part isn't that the science was wrong. The strangest part is what the real T-Rex actually looked like, and why the truth is somehow more unsettling than the movie version. The obvious question is, why did Jurassic Park get so much wrong? The answer isn't negligence. In 1993, the film was scientifically ahead of its time. It showed the raptors as pack hunters. It suggested dinosaurs were closer to birds than to lizards. For 1993, it was remarkable. But that's not the right question. The better question is, what does it tell us that we've kept the wrong version for 30 years, even as the evidence changed? Because the science moved on. The pop culture image didn't. And the gap between what paleontologists now know and what most people believe is wider than it has ever been. In 2012, paleontologist Mark Norell and his team at the American Museum of Natural History published a comprehensive analysis of Tyrannosaur skin impressions found across multiple dig sites. What they found complicated everything. The evidence pointed to a T-Rex that was, at minimum, partially covered in filamentous structures proto-feathers, not full plumage like a modern eagle, more like the sparse, coarse bristles you'd find on a cassowary. But the scales-only version was already gone. Then, in 2017, a study in Biology Letters analyzed a set of Tyrannosaur skin patches from the neck, hips, and tail of multiple specimens. These patches showed large scales, not feathers, which created a new picture, an animal that was probably feathered on parts of its body and scaled on others, something between a bird and a reptile in a way that has no clean modern equivalent. But the posture data was even more striking. Every mounted skeleton of a T-Rex before the 1990s showed the animal upright, tail dragging on the ground, body nearly vertical. That image came from how early paleontologists assembled the bones the same way you'd imagine a giant lizard walking. The actual biomechanics of the skeleton don't support it. A T-Rex standing upright with a dragging tail would have destroyed its own vertebrae within years. The real posture was nearly horizontal, head forward, tail out behind as counterweight, moving like an enormous, powerful bird. Start with the roar. The T-Rex roar in Jurassic Park, that deep, resonant, chest-shaking sound, was created by mixing recordings of a baby elephant, an alligator, and a tiger. It is one of the most iconic sounds in cinema. It almost certainly never existed. Modern paleontology strongly suggests that large theropod dinosaurs couldn't roar at all. Crocodilians, the closest living relatives of dinosaurs on the Archosaur family tree, don't roar. Neither do most birds. The vocal anatomy required for that kind of low-frequency sound doesn't appear in the fossil record. What's more likely? A closed-mouth vocalization, a deep, resonant boom produced by inflating throat tissue, similar to how a cassowary or an emu communicates. Not a roar, a rumble, something you'd feel before you heard it. Now think about the vision. It can't see you if you don't move. That line is in the film. It became a cultural fact, and it is completely fabricated. Tyrannosaur eye socket anatomy shows forward-facing orbits the same configuration as owls and primates, optimized for depth perception and tracking moving objects. A 2021 study in Science estimated T-Rex had binocular vision 13 times sharper than a modern human's. It didn't hunt by motion detection. It hunted the way a hawk hunts. It saw everything. But here's what's really interesting. The biggest misconception isn't about feathers or posture or vision. It's about the arms. Those famously useless-looking arms were almost certainly not useless. At roughly 1 meter long, with 2 robust claws, they were too short to reach the mouth, but perfectly positioned for one specific task, gripping prey that was already pinned beneath the animal's massive body weight. Think of them less like arms, and more like hooks. The T-Rex didn't need to grab with its arms before the bite, it needed to hold on after. And then there's the question of whether it was even primarily a predator. A 2013 analysis of tyrannosaur bite marks on hadrosaur bones found evidence of feeding on carcasses that showed no signs of a killing bite animals that had died of other causes. Some researchers now estimate that, like modern lions and hyenas, T-Rex may have scavenged as much as it hunted, not because it was weak, because when you're that large and dead things are available, efficiency wins every time. But here's the thing, Jurassic Park didn't just get the science wrong. It did something more interesting. It froze our imagination at a specific moment in time. Every generation inherits a version of the past shaped by whatever the science knew when the culture locked in, and culture locks in faster than science moves. The T-Rex most people carry in their heads is the 1993 version, not the 2024 version, not because the evidence hasn't changed, because the image came first, and images are harder to update than facts. The real T-Rex feathered in parts, horizontal, booming rather than roaring, seeing with terrifying precision, is stranger than the movie version, more alien, more actual. And somehow, knowing what it really was makes 66 million years feel closer, not further. Jurassic Park gave us a monster we could recognize, something scaled and reptilian and safely ancient, different enough from us that its extinction felt inevitable. The real animal was something else. It had structures that looked like the beginning of feathers. It moved like an enormous bird. It may have stood over a carcass on a cold Cretaceous morning making sounds that had no name. We've been looking at the wrong dinosaur for 30 years. The right one is stranger, more unsettling, and in ways that are hard to explain, more alive.